Hello and welcome to this weekend's race recap and ranking video. In this video, we're going to look at last night's Chicago Supermotocross playoff. Now, if you're not familiar with my race recaps, I'll give you a rundown of the video. I start the video by going through the top 5 finishers in each class and how their day was, how they started, what they did to make progress or fall back, how their day went. And then I'll do 2 surprises and 2 disappointments throughout the day, and I'll end the video with an updated top 10 rider rankings list. Now, I've been pretty quiet. I haven't done a video in over a week. That's because I've been very busy in personal life, and I have other job I have to do, obviously, and all that. So I took a week off and also try to fix my schedule. I want to have a certain schedule for how I do things on this channel and on my website and Spotify, all this stuff. Try to get it all organized so it's less stressful for me. Anyway, let's get straight into this video. My first race recap back. Let's start with the 250 class, and man, what an interesting race. Lots of guys who did bad last week did good this week. Some guys who did really good last week did awful this week, so a lot of ups and downs, weird finishes. Let's start with the top 5. In 5th place, we have Red Bull KTM's Max Voland. Now, he got a really bad start in the first moto. He ended up running around mid-pack, just got stuck in the first turn. He came out about 14th, so he had to fight from that. He slowly got by guys one by one, eventually finishing in just a meh finish of 8th for him anyway. So Moto 1 was just meh, not that great. On a Moto 2, when Voland again got a bad start outside top 10, this time he had more speed, and in the second half of the Moto 2, he went from 9th to 5th. So lots of progress there. His 8.5 Moto scores were good enough to secure a 5th overall in the day, which was really good considering last week kind of sucked for him. I don't even think he was in the top 10. Not very good last week, so glad to see he's coming back around. In 4th place, we have RJ Hampshire. After a rough SMX debut last weekend with a 14th overall finish for RJ, this weekend's performance in Chicago was a spirit lifter for sure. In Moto 1, RJ got a solid 5th place start and kind of ran a boring race. Like, good, but boring. He stayed in 5th pretty much the entire race, and in Moto 2, Hampshire had an up-and-down race. Hampshire started around 5th again, ended up falling down to 8th at one point, I believe it was, but somehow in the second half of that moto, he laid down some fast laps and climbed all the way to 4th. So 5-4 on the day, earned him solid 4th overall. Wicked good comeback from his awful 14th place finish last weekend, so glad to see Hampshire's back. 3rd place, we have Hayden Deegan. Deegan came into the day with the red plate, tied for points lead with Joe Shimoda, obviously. In Moto 1, Deegan pulled a nice hole shot and led most of the race with Hunter Lawrence right on his tail. Unfortunately, he did make a mistake before that finish line. You guys remember it. He kind of leaned over a little bit too much, fell out of the rut, almost fall over, and then he couldn't jump the finish line. That gave Hunter the couple seconds he needed to pass him. So that cost him. He ended up getting 2nd place. On the last couple laps, Joe Shimoda threw down some fast laps and flew by Hayden Deegan as well. So that put him down to 3rd place. Overall, still a good race for him, though. In Moto 2, Deegan got a rough start, per his standards, running around 5th, and stayed there for over half the race. And in the latter half, he must have found another gear or something because he made a couple passes into 3rd, stayed there for the remainder of Moto 2. So, consistent day, 3-3 for 3rd overall, not too shabby. Hayden Deegan still looking pretty good championship-wise. 2nd place, we have Joe Shimoda in Moto 1. Joe Shimoda got a pretty good start. Around 4th, he did fall to 5th right after that, but found another gear, pushed past a few guys, got back up to 3rd, caught up to Deegan, and quickly made it by him for 2nd. So overall, Moto 1 is pretty good for him. On to Moto 2, Shimoda came out of the gate swinging. I think he started in 2nd, was it? Yeah, 2nd. He started in 2nd, made his way to the lead, ran up front for a while until his bike began having problems. He still didn't specify what the problem was, but he did confirm there were bike problems, so he gave away his 1st place position to Hunter Lawrence, unfortunately. Either way, 2-2 for 2nd overall in the day. Really good considering he did awesome last week as well. Now he's only 3 points down in the championship from Hunter, which kind of sucks, but Joe Shimoda's still looking really good in Supermotocross, so 2nd place for him. 1st place, Hunter Lawrence, just a complete polar opposite day for Hunter compared to round 1. In Moto 1, Hunter started 2nd place, right behind Deegan, battled with him for a while, and I told you Deegan made a mistake. That gave Hunter the lead. Ran with it, won the race, so 1st place, Moto 1 for Hunter. Moto 2, he was in similar circumstances, running 2nd behind Shimoda. Shimoda had bike troubles, moved into 1st and went 1-1. So overall, I don't think he was the fastest guy in the 250 class, but he did put himself in the right position in both motos. That's all he had to do. So consistency is key, I guess, and he put himself in the right position in both motos. 1-1, first overall on the day, and complete switch from last weekend. Glad to see Hunter's back. He is now first in the points as well for 250 class, so it's going to be a showdown in the last race. Top three guys are looking pretty tight. On to the 450 class. Fifth place, we have Dylan Ferrandis. Ferrandis had a little bit of a rougher day than last week in Chicago. He started Moto 1 and fourth. A few minutes in, Roczen went by, pushing him down to fifth. From then on, the top five really didn't move until Plessinger ruined his party and passed him near the end of the moto, pushing him down to sixth. So, rough one, Moto 1 for him. Moto 2, he got a rough start again, running eighth after the first turn, but he quickly made his way to fourth place. And again, Plessinger caught up to him in the last few laps, passed him, and that pushed him down to fifth. So, 6-5 in the day for Dylan Ferrandis, fifth overall. I'm sure that's not what he wanted because he did better last weekend, so maybe he'll take that anger into his last weekend with Monster Energy Star Racing next weekend. So maybe he can use that to prove himself. We all know he's fast, but he's got to prove himself because no team really wants him right now. Maybe he'll do that next weekend. Fourth place, we have Aaron Plessinger. In Moto 1, Plessinger got off the gate good, but almost fell in the first turn, costing him a lot of spots. He came out 13th. By halfway through the race, he was battling to get into that top five, though, so he proved he had the speed. On the last lap, he would pass Ferrandis for fifth place, like I mentioned. And in Moto 2, Plessinger again got an awful start. Had to spend the first couple laps climbing back into the top 10. By the halfway point, he was battling in seventh with Anderson and Webb, I believe. So making moves pretty quickly, and then he got past those guys, quickly made his way past them, and even got past Ferrandis a second time for fourth. So 5-4, fourth overall, not too shabby for Aaron Plessinger. He just had to work hard because he had pretty bad starts, so take that in the next weekend. I think it'll be pretty good. Third place, Honda HRC's Chase Sexton. Yikes is all I have to say about this for Sexton. He broke Jett's winning streak last week and broke his own losing streak in such perfect fashion. Last week, it was a completely different Sexton. Dominant. Both motos just came out swinging. Won incredibly. Very few mistakes. Just super fast. This week, complete opposite. So, unfortunately, yesterday, he was just off pace. In Moto 1, he started around third, quickly made his way around Barcia for second, and just shifted his focus to Jett. Well, he stuck with him, kind of, for a little bit, but just didn't match his speed. He remained second the whole moto, and Jett just kept drifting ahead. I believe it was like 10 or 12 seconds ahead. Jett won by, so not too great for him in Moto 1. Moto 2, similar circumstances. Started fifth, got up to third, but Jett and Kenny ran away from him. At the end, he was about 14 seconds behind Jett, who was second at that time. So, again, not good, just off pace. 2-3 for third overall, though. I mean, on paper, that looks good, but now it's going to be a tight championship finish next weekend. He kind of has to win. So, still a podium. In championship perspective, Sexton is in a must-win scenario now next week. So, hopefully he is just really good at Supercross, because if that's the case, that he's just been struggling motocross only, as Chicago was mostly motocross-esque, hopefully the Supercross works in his advantage next week, and that's all he's kind of got in his pocket right now, because otherwise Roczen and Jett have proved to be faster than him. So overall, though, third, good day for Sexton. Second, we have Ken Roczen. Kenny looked solid all day again. In Moto 1, he started in fourth and made his way to third quickly. Unfortunately, he just wasn't fast enough to catch Jett or Sexton, so he ended up finishing there. In Moto 2, it was a different story. Kenny got around a fifth-place start again. This time, he made his way to the front very quickly, getting by Sexton and Barcia. Jett and Roczen then got by Nicoletti, and the battle would ensue. They battled for most of the race, kind of yo-yoing back and forth. Kenny was fast on one side, Jett was fast on the other side, but they were running around the same lap times. At one point, Kenny put a 1 second faster lap time than Jett, I believe. But yeah, Kenny caught up to him. Jett ended up letting him by. You all know this. I guess Jett, I don't know if he's playing mind games or what. He said mathematically, if he let him go, it didn't matter. Or it would help him with this. I don't know what he was really trying to get to with that. It didn't matter if he won or didn't. But the whole point is Kenny's trying to prove himself, and Jett should be trying to prove himself as well. Instead, Jett just let him go, which kind of sucks. So I don't know why he did that. Maybe he had a misunderstanding of points, or maybe he was playing chess, doing a little mental warfare with Kenny. Either way, Kenny was really fast again this week. That's 2 second-place finishes in a row for Kickstart Kenny, so looking very consistent. Obviously, he showed he can run with Jett. That's a good tool he has in his pocket for the finale next weekend, so overall, second place, awesome for Ken Roxon. And in first, we have Jett Lawrence. Jett had a really good comeback this weekend. Last weekend was just awful, especially for his standards, awful. But this weekend in Moto 1, Jett came out first, just dominated the race. No real competition. Ran a typical Jett Lawrence race and won. In Moto 2, he got a fantastic second-place start behind Filthy Phil. We'll get into that in a bit. Within, I believe, half a lap, he got by Phil for the lead and then battled with Kenny the whole race, and they were also almost matching each other's lap times and pretty close for most of the race until he let Kenny go by. Again, don't know why, but Jett let him go and took second, so 1-2 for first overall for Jett. Now he's second in championship points. Pretty good comeback from last weekend. Last weekend was awful for him. We'll see what he's got in Supercross next weekend. All right, on to my 2 surprises and 2 disappointments. My first surprise was, of course, Phil Nicoletti killing it in Moto 2 with a solid hole shot and leading the race for half a lap. Like, he's normally a barely top 10 guy, and he's obviously older, so it was really cool to see a vet get out there killing it. It was just awesome to see. Unfortunately, he didn't stay up front long as Jett and Kenny got by him quick, and then he began to fall through the pack. He was probably wicked tired, arm pump, but it was cool to see him run up with the young kids. He ended up 9th, which was worse than his first moto finish of 7th, but I'm going to assume that's due to fitness. He probably was pretty stressed out running first for that half a lap. That's pretty stressful, especially knowing Jett is right behind you. So either way, that's my first surprise of the day. Awesome to see Nicoletti up there. My second surprise was RJ Hampshire. Now, I know he's a fast rider. I know he's really good, but he obviously had that injury, and the first round of Supermotocross was straight up awful. So he had a rough go at it last weekend, 14th on the day. This weekend, he wasn't messing around. Wicked consistent, wicked fast, no mistakes, no crashes. So I'm going to say, yeah, this is a surprise for sure. 4th overall on the day. That looked like normal RJ. That's my second surprise because I didn't think he'd be feeling that good that fast. He just struggled too much last week. I didn't expect it. On to my disappointments. Disappointment number 1 is obviously Jett playing mind games. I'm just going to say that because that's what I think he was doing. I don't think he was doing the math in his head. I really don't, because either way, to me, you'd want to win the race anyway, because Roxon has talked crap in the past. He's said that he thinks Jett wasn't that good, or I don't think he said it that exactly that way, so don't yell at me for that one. But either way, Kenny said things about Jett. He just kind of said, like, yeah, he's fast, but so am I. So obviously, I think for Jett, he would want to prove himself. He hasn't raced Kenny all year. So now it's time to prove himself. And Kenny's giving him a run for his money, and he just pulls over. So that was a disappointment for me. I don't know the full story. I just wish Jett would stay there and let the battle happen. It sucks to see that happen. I mean, that's all I have to say on that. I wish Jett would have stayed and let Kenny battle him. Disappointment number 2 for me was Vial. Last week was awesome for Vial. He killed it. Honestly, it looked like he was going to win a race last weekend at one point, but he slowed down a little bit. There were some guys that got by him, but this weekend, again, he was wicked consistent. What was his finishes? Vial's finishes last week were 3-2, and this weekend he was 4th in the first moto, and in the second moto he was running about the same. So I was impressed. Vial's finally finding his motion in this. He's learning Supercross and motocross enough and the bike to run top 5 consistently. I'm glad to see that because he really hasn't all year. And unfortunately, second moto dropped out of the race. That really sucks because he would have done so good. He would have been a podium contender again. But he ended up getting dead last, had to drop out of the race, DNF, because his shifting lever broke off, I believe it was. I believe it was a shifting lever. Yeah, hit a rut, knocked it off. That's it for that. But that's my second disappointment. Sucks to see. I was so looking forward to Vial finally running up there again. All right, on to the power rankings. Let's start with the 250 class. In 10th place, we have RJ Hampshire. His average finish is around 9th. He's been very inconsistent in Supermotocross, but he's shown signs of greatness, especially this week. So he's a breach into the top 10. He moved somebody out of my top 10. So glad to see him doing better. 9th place, we have Max Voland. He averages 8.75 finish so far in Supermotocross. Last week was really bad. He wasn't in my top 10. I think he was 12th last week or something like that. So not good. This week was really good, though. 5th overall. Really good. So that averages out. So he's, again, a breach into my top 10. He pushed out, I believe it was Pierce Brown was in my top 10. But yeah, Brown and Swole, I think, were the other guys right there. They got pushed out. They didn't do very good last weekend, around 10th. And this weekend, they did worse or about the same. And Volan and Hampshire have done really good and really bad, kind of. So that's my 10th and 9th so far. 8th place, Levi Kitchen. His average finish is 7.75, and he's been inconsistent in both races, but fast. Like, he's had one good moto and one really bad one, both races. So that actually knocks him down 2 positions from my ranking from last weekend. 7th place, we have Seth Hamaker. He averages 7.75 as well, but he's more consistent than Kitchen. He's consistently between 5th and 10th. So I put that above Kitchen's inconsistency. With that being said, Hamaker has risen 2 positions due to the inconsistency of the guys behind him. In 6th, I have Jordan Smith. He averages 7.5, and he's been a very inconsistent top 10 guy. Either way, he's had like a really good moto and really bad moto as well. So with that being said, he's still better than most of these guys. 6th on the list, and he moved up 1 in the ranks. 5th place, I have Ryder DeFrancesco. Averages 7.25. He's kind of all over the board with his finishes, but good. Like, he's got a 12th. Let me look at my paper here. He's got a Ryder D. He's got a 12th, a 7th, and the 3rd. Like, that's kind of all over the place. Either way, it adds up to pretty good overalls, and that's why I put him in 5th. He is the same as he was in my last ranking. He hasn't moved. 4th, I have Tom Vial. He averages 7.75, which is worse than DeFrancesco and Jordan Smith, but he's consistent. The only reason his average is so high is because his shifter broke in Chicago. So I didn't move him down really far based on just his average finish because it was kind of out of his hands. With that being said, even though his average is so high, I still keep him in 4th, which is down 1 from where he was last weekend. I still had to move him down a little bit because of that, but can't hold it 100% on him. It's not his fault. In 3rd place, I have Hunter Lawrence. He averages 4.5. He's been very inconsistent, but he did get 2 wins this weekend. But they weren't dominant. I wouldn't consider them dominant because Deegan messed up and Shimoda had a problem. So not 100% him showing his true speed. There were some issues there too. But Hunter Lawrence up 1 position in my rankings. 2nd place, I have Hayden Deegan. Hayden Deegan averages 3rd place finish. He's been very consistent, and he's got a race win, so I leave him 2nd. That's where I had him last weekend. I have no reason to move him down or move him up, so Hayden Deegan, 2nd place. And in 1st, Joe Shimoda. His average finish is 2.25. He's been extremely consistent besides that bike issue that he had this weekend, which still knocked him down to 2nd. Either way, Joe's been incredibly dominant so far. Class, he's been dominant, so 1st place for Joe Shimoda. He's not in the points lead anymore, but he's in 2nd, I believe. So, still, I put him in 1st. Most consistent guy in the class. On to the 450 power rankings, and we have 10th place Colt Nichols. Nichols averages a 10.5 finish, but he's been consistently around the 10th spot, 10th, 11th. I think he had a 12th in there, too. Either way, when you add it up, 10.5. I think it's fair to put him in 10th. In 9th, we have Garrett Marchbanks. Marchbanks, again, he averages 10th, actually, not 10.5. I thought it was the same. But 10th, he averages 10th, and he's been very, very consistent. His finishes are 10, 9, 10, 11. It's really hard to stay that consistent, especially in this deep of a field. So Marchbanks earns that 9th. In 8th place, we have Cooper Webb. He's averaging 7.5. He's consistently not too great, especially per his standard. Webb's been running around 8th. I think it's actually 8.7, 8.7. Yeah, he had the same finishes in both races. Honestly, it ain't too bad for switching teams. He only rode it, I'm assuming, for a week. Or a couple weeks. Not too bad. But 8th is a fair spot to put him. 7th place, Justin Barsha. His average is 7th, actually, as well. He's just been all over the board in Supermotocross. He's been as high as 4th, as low as 10th. But overall consistent. I mean, that's pretty consistent for Supermotocross and compared to some other guys. So 7th, that's where I put Justin. Pretty good. Sixth place, I have Jason Anderson. He averages 7th as well, and he's also all over the board, but he has 3 finishes near the top 5, which is a lot more consistent than Justin Barcia had. That's why I put Anderson ahead of him. We'll see next weekend if that sticks, but overall, I think Anderson's doing better than Barcia. 5th place, Aaron Plessinger. Plessinger averages 5th right now. He's been very consistent at 5th. His finishes are 5.6, 5.4. So I think 5th is a fair spot to put him. Not much more to say on that. Plessinger's just a top 5 guy right now. 4th place, Dylan Ferrandez. His average is 4.25. He's been relatively consistent around top 5. His worst finish is actually 6th. So everything else is better than that. He actually almost won in the first race. He got 2nd. So Ferrandez has been doing pretty good, just not top 3 good. And 3rd, I have Jett Lawrence. His average is 3rd. I didn't put him ahead of Kenny because he's inconsistent. His first race was really inconsistent with 7-2 scores. And then this weekend, he was dominant. He should have been 1-1, but he went 1-2. So I just couldn't put him ahead of Roczen because Roczen was extremely consistent. Either way, Jett's got 1 moto win. So 3rd place is fair for him, in my opinion, right now. 2nd place, I have Ken Roczen. Roczen averages 2.5. He's been very consistent. His finishes actually are 3rd, 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 1st. That's really consistent, and he had that win as well on top of that. So between the consistency and the win and throwing down with Jett, I put him 2nd. In 1st place, I have Chase Sexton, primarily because his average finish is 1.75. He has been extremely consistent with 1-1-2-3 scores. Harder to get any more consistent than that. This weekend, he didn't have much for Jett, but he was extremely consistent still. So I didn't want to move him down. I didn't think he was worse than Roczen, but I don't know. I think 1st is fair for Sexton right now. He still has the points lead, so we'll see what he can do next weekend in LA. Well, that's all I got for today's race recap and rankings for the Supermotocross playoff of Chicago, sorry. If you enjoy my content, follow and rate the page on Spotify. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, like the video, and thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next race recap, which is actually tomorrow for the MXGP of Italy. Thanks for watching. See you then.